When the history of this particular time we are passing through is written, you can be sure this will be the part where there'll be drum rolls. Right? Roll the drums, please. And then after that, the voice will say, and then Ruto went after Uhuru and the Moi families. And what happened after that? The latest move by President Ruto has long been anticipated. We have even discussed it on this channel in several videos. But still, it has come as quite a shock to many Kenyans. And I have to say this, it is the kind of move that sends cold chills through any serious analyst who understands. And we also have to acknowledge this. Never before in the history of Kenya has a sitting president gone after their predecessor. Never ever. We thought it would happen in 2003 when President Mwai Kibaki insiders decided hatuwezi kuacha Moi aende hivyo. We must pursue Moi and his billions and the corruption that was carried out on his watch. And we must make Moi pay. That's the decision they made. And for starters, a bill was tabled in Parliament. But that move was stopped dead on its tracks by guess who? If you don't know the answer to that question, you will never guess. It was stopped by a man called Raila Amolo Odinga. Raila was powerful in Parliament. He was in Parliament himself at that time under the old constitution. He is the one who saved Moi. He saved the man who had detained him long. The man who had made him suffer. What kind of man is Baba? Huh? Raila saved Moi. So it never happened. But now, right before our eyes, we are seeing President William Samoei Ruto very determined, and all the signals in this direction were there from very early on. President Ruto has decided to go after Uhuru and the Moi family. Where? Folks, kimeumana kuumana. There's no other way you can describe it. But let us put this whole thing in perspective. Before I tell you how kimeumana kuumana. Let's just put this thing in perspective. Number one, and this will shock you, this is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because it will protect Kenya from ever having to go through what it has gone through in the past. Right from the presidency of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Because if you're talking about the Kenyatta fortune, you cannot even begin to understand it unless you look very closely at the presidency of our founding father and the very first president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And the truth of the matter is that the Mois and the Kenyattas have always protected each other. And so this move by President Ruto is good for the country because it will discourage this thing ever happening again, where families dominate the financial sector of a country. However, having said that, it is also true to say this is the wrong move at the wrong time, executed by the wrong man. And let me explain. This is something that you'd like to do when a country is stable. This is something that you'd like to do when a country has got electoral justice, where the person sitting in the office of the president has the full, legitimate mandate of the people. However, when you have a situation where there's a big question mark, which is still growing daily, over the hold of the office, and whether he won the election or not, this now becomes something completely different. And chances are very high that one will not be able to meet the objectives. Chances are more than high that instead of this thing helping the country, it will take the country backwards. It will damage the country. It will bring chaos. Let he who has not sinned throw the first stone. Yeah. However, it is even more than that. I say this because of the image of President Ruto before he became president. Because there are very basic questions like, how did he make his money? Yeah, and don't give me that story about selling chickens on the roadside. That one won't fly. It'll never ever fly. And then you have to consider that it is a matter of public record, information in the public domain, that President Ruto has been linked in the past, before he became president, to multiple corruption scandals. Yeah, let me just stop there. Let me not move on to the other scandals. Because when you want to clean up a country, the way you'd clean it up, by demanding that everybody pays taxes, which is as it should be, and you're trying to make good, those who have evaded tax in the past. When you make a move like that, it can never work unless you yourself, who's leading the charge, starts with their own tax returns of the past, and you make them a matter of public scrutiny. In other words, you have to be safi kama pamba, clean. Nothing short of that will work. And this should be obvious. And then the most scary point, the point which cancels out everything else I've said up to now, and that is, you're going after presidents of Kenya. Former presidents, but they still hold the title president. How do you address Uhuru Kenyatta? Former President Uhuru Kenyatta. In the United States of America, all past presidents are still referred to as Mr. President. Mr. President Bill Clinton. Mr. President Barack Obama. And there is a very good reason for this. Let me give you a very simple illustration. If today you received a call from former President Uhuru Kenyatta, would you just take it casually and say, si huyu mtu alitoka? No. If I received a call from former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I'm seated comfortably, leaning back on my chair, and I pick up my phone, hold the line for President Uhuru Kenyatta, the first thing I do is to stand up. Yes, he can't see me, but I stand up. Yes, sir, Mr. President. Yes, sir, Mr. President. Ndio, Mr. President. Nitafanya. Nitafanya juu chini, Mr. President. Asante, Mr. President. Asante sana. That is how you handle a former president. Boss, huyu si nyanya yako. Ai. Now, and this is very important, this is a man who still has vast political influence countrywide. I've just explained how I'll receive that call. And I'd bet you a vast majority of Kenyans would receive that call in the same way. And so you go after Uhuru Kenyatta, you will already have lost a lot of support in the country. That is the truth. You may not like former President Uhuru Kenyatta. That's okay. That's your right. But within the country called Kenya, there are very many people who like, respect, appreciate the contributions of this great past president of Kenya. And so this president, former president, who has a presidential CV, has somebody who does not have a presidential CV. They just came into office the other day, going after them. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to divide the country. It's going to bring problems. It's going to create chaos. Former President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi has left us, but his family remains. His supporters within the country called Kenya remain. The people whose lives were touched, the families whose lives were touched by the Daniel Toroitich arap Moi presidency are still there. You go after the Moi family, you lose another huge chunk of support from Moi people. You know, so far, the person who was best qualified to have gone after a former president is the late former president, Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki. And as I said earlier, there was actually an attempt to go after Moi. But looking back, in retrospect, that would have been a very wrong move, for the same reasons I've explained. President Kibaki received a massive mandate from the people. He won by a landslide. Yeah, but still, going after Moi would have lost him huge chunks of support in the country. And I'm more than certain that he would never even have been able to achieve even 10% of what he ended up achieving. Yeah, without that support that he would have lost as a result of going after Moi. Yeah, when Moi had left office. Now, for avoidance of any doubt, let us get this clear. This issue is not about taxes. It's not. As much as Itumbi and company will want to convince you that it is about tax, and it is about everybody being treated the same, and everybody paying tax, it is not about tax. So what is it about? Now, before I tell you what it's about, let us consider the fact that President Ruto has got excellent advisors, very smart people. Let us also consider the fact that President Ruto himself is a very smart man. Okay, he knows all these points are presented. He is more than aware of all of them. And then when you look at the timing, the pressure coming in from Raila Odinga, I mean, somebody made a very solid point the other day when they said Raila has only had 2 meetings. Raila has only had 2 public rallies. And there is so much panic the new day at Kenya Kwanza. What is going to happen when those rallies are 10? What will happen? In my opinion, this is a move being made by that administration, an administration that no longer has anything to lose. Okay? I mean, it is common sense. When does a human being begin to make kamikaze moves? Now, what is kamikaze? Kamikaze were the suicide bombers, kids, Japanese, who were put in aircrafts, yeah, that were destined to crash and explode and destroy the enemy. During the Second World War, that's where that expression comes from. And it stands to reason. If as a person, you're solid, you're established, you can see into the future, you're confident that everything is okay, you're confident of your future, will you have any reason to pull off a kamikaze move? No. Let's take a very simple illustration. You're in a marriage. You're married to this man. He loves you. You're part and parcel of that family. Indeed, a lot of properties belonging to this family are in your name. Hakuna mahali unaenda. Are you going to pull off a kamikaze move? No. However, a woman who's married in a family, in a marriage which has been shaky from the start, his family does not recognize you. People don't like you in that family. A little property here and there is already in the marriage, but not fully established. It is not a fortune anybody can really look at seriously. You don't have any kids yet, with your husband. You're just there. And then something goes wrong. Maybe you suspect your husband is having an affair. Kamikaze moves straight without even thinking about it. That is human nature. And then there's another very huge point. Very huge. You see, whether you and I like it or not, the reality is that Kenya iko na wenyewe. There are those people who own Kenya. I know it's not a nice thing to say. I know everybody will feel bad when I say that, but it is the truth. There are some people in Kenya who have money, and they have a lot of influence right across the country. They are not in politics. Some of them are not even known to Kenyans, but they're there. And make no mistake about it, there's a lot of unity, within those who own Kenya. They look after each other. They're solidly united. And I'm suspecting, in 2003, when Mwai Kibaki took over as president, he did not fully realize the power of wenye Kenya. And he came into office with a lot of determination, zero tolerance to corruption. Zero tolerance to corruption. And Mwai Kibaki was determined. He wanted to achieve this. And he wanted to do a lot of other things for Kenyans. But then, when Kenya looked at him, and they said, no, we're going to deal with you. And what happened next, for those who are around, is that Kibaki's government became very shaky. In fact, people started predicting, this was in 2003, that this is a government that will not last. By 2004, many were sure this government, there's no way Kibaki is going to survive. Why? Because he was up against wenye Kenya, the owners of Kenya. And the owners of Kenyans were unrelenting in their quest to show the President of the Republic of Kenya who is boss. And they're doing a very good job of it. So, how was the Kibaki presidency stabilized? I'll tell you. He went to see former President Mois. The man his administration had told in late 2002, immediately after they won the elections, early 2003, the man they had told, you go home to Kabarak, but keep your TV on, and we're going to show you how a government should be run. That's the man they had told that. And so Kibaki swallowed his pride, akatoa kofia, and with hat in hand, he went to see Mois. And within a very short time, I don't think it was even 2 weeks, the Kibaki administration had stabilized. So what magic did Mois do? I'll tell you. He did only 2 things. He told Kibaki about something called provincial administration, which Kibaki had ignored up to that point. That's the way a government maintains control and becomes stable. And remember, provincial administration was made illegal by our new constitution, which emphasizes on devolved government, counties, etc., etc. But admittedly at that time was still under the old constitution. And so under provincial administration, the Kibaki presidency was able to get reports from a chief in a village you have never heard of and you'll never hear of until you leave this earth. And know exactly what was going on down there. And they're able to plan in advance. They're able to forestall any crisis before it even starts. And then the second thing Mois did was to call a truce with wenye Kenya, those who own the country. They were told, boys, let's settle down. Tuliza boli, okay? We'll meet in some middle ground. What you want we'll take care of. Yeah, but please, please, give us a little breathing room. Okay, you've made your point. Tafadhali, relax. And then what happened next is that a very different Kibaki emerged. The Kibaki who ended up being linked to a huge scandal. Yeah. Do you remember Anglo leasing? The Kibaki we saw next was very far away from the policy he had promised Kenyans. In fact, he had told Kenyans, keep this campaign flyer and watch us. And watch us as we are true to our word that in our government there will be zero tolerance to corruption. The Kibaki who emerged was very far away from fulfilling that campaign pledge. But it was the same man. He remained Emilio Stanley Moi Kibaki. Same height, same complexion, same brain, same way of thinking. So what really happened here? Kibaki opted to survive. Okay? And remember, Kibaki had been in government for decades, right from independence. The contacts, the influence, the support Kibaki had countrywide was colossal. What about William Samoei Ruto? Can you even compare the two gentlemen? But now we have President Ruto trying to succeed where Mwai Kibaki failed. What do you think is going to happen? You tell me. Now, admittedly, I always speak the truth. Yeah, whether you like it or not, whether it will make you happy or not, you come to this channel because I tell you as it is. Now, admittedly, President Ruto would have had a fighting chance of succeeding on this noble cause. Was he in a situation where he had the support of the vast majority of Kenyans? But he doesn't have that. Indeed, the vast majority of Kenyans want him out of office. Yesterday, not even today or tomorrow. Yeah. And this vast majority of Kenyans want him out of office so bad that nothing President Ruto will do will make them happy. Nothing President Ruto will do will appease them. And so predictably, this good thing that President Ruto wants to do, good for the country, if it is done without fear or favor, in the right way, using only facts, not witch hunting, this good thing is going to end up boomeranging right back to Ruto. Now, many Kenyans don't know what a boomerang is. Yeah, but it's an odd shaped, almost like a crooked C, correction. Almost like something which wants to be a C, the letter C, that you throw and it spins, 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 and spins right back to you. And so if you're not careful, what will happen is that you're throwing it in a certain direction and you're very relaxed and you're smiling and you're watching it fly. And then the next second, you're running for your life because it has come back for you. Yeah, that's what we mean when we say boomeranging back. In other words, this latest move by the president is going to aid the momentum building up on the other side with Raila, Amolo Odinga and the others, which is against Ruto. They are definitely going to use this. Those who may have been supporting Raila in a lukewarm manner will now fully support him. And even more important, wenye Kenya, who might have been bored or not interested with the developments in the country right now, will now fully back Raila Odinga. You know, when you talk about the Kenyatta family, when you talk about the Mois family, a very huge number of those we call wenye Kenya are domiciled right inside those two families. Now, don't misquote me. People should pay their taxes. People must pay their taxes. That is true. That is accurate. That is the only thing you have to do. You don't have an option. Option B or C. You don't. You must pay your taxes. However, as I said when I started this particular train of thought, this is not about paying taxes. This is politics. Oh yes. And when something becomes political, everything changes. You know, there's some people who are saying that this was a very smart move by President Ruto to turn people against Azimio and President Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, the last time President Ruto did something like this, when he was not yet president, he managed to turn a huge chunk of the Mount Kenya region against then President Uhuru Kenyatta. It must have been very easy for him, because you see, to oppose authority is something people do almost as second nature. People like to oppose authority. People like to rebel against the authority. And that is the main point here. It was easy last time because President Uhuru Kenyatta was in authority. But now President Uhuru Kenyatta is no longer in authority. He is no longer the president of Kenya. So when you try the same thing, chances are higher that there will be sympathy on his side rather than people going against him. He's not the president. And what is much more likely to happen is that people will be against you and for the Mois and the Kenyattas. That is human nature. And so if it is true that this was the plan, then I can tell you, mapema, asubuhi, mchana, that it will not work, that it will fail, that it will fall flat, very flat on its face. It just won't work. It will have the opposite effect. It will strengthen the opposition to the government of President Ruto. It's that simple. Indeed, that is what is already happening. Now, just a quick reminder about my latest WIBs, number 94, 95, 96. I believe you can see details on your screens right now. My weekly intelligence brief carry very sensitive information. And this information will help you understand even what is unfolding right now, even what I've pointed out in this particular video. It's not something you should miss if you can help it. For example, is it true that former President Uhuru Kenyatta has been helping Azimio? The answer is there in my WIB number 95, and that answer will shock you because it doesn't even talk about these demonstrations. No. Find out in WIB number 95. Don't miss it for anything. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.